of May.
Go
The
ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
third, yeah, the third of May. Prior to that, I decided to do some, some canvassing in my neighborhood, walk around and knock on doors and, meet my neighbors. I've been living in this neighborhood for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, so I did the first week. I walked around, knocked on doors, on my street, cul-de-sac, and the next street over. So the following week, which was May 3rd, I did the same thing, and I went around, knocked on doors, and I met, mostly ladies, opened the doors and unlocked the door, and took my business card and introduced myself. Hey, my name is Joe Smith. I live in the neighborhood. Blah blah blah. I'm a realtor, so forth and so on. So I went to this one house, and the gentleman wasn't home. He had a Ring camera. So he said, hello. I said, hello, my name is Joe Smith, and here's my business card. I showed my business card. I put it in front of the camera. And he said, I'm not there now, but I'll be there in 5 minutes. Can you wait there? I said, sure, I can. So I waited, and I said, I'm going to go to some other houses while I'm waiting. So I went to 3 other houses and told them who I was and gave them my business card. So I waited and I waited. And by the way, when I went to those other 3 houses, other 3 homes, I told them who I was, and I was waiting for the neighbor at the end of the street. So I waited, and then, about 5-10 minutes later, the guy shows up, and behind him, 3 police vehicles. So I'm like, what the F?
Yeah.
And the guy said, yeah, my wife got nervous and she called the police. And I'm like, what? I never touched the guy's doorknob. I never looked in the window. I stepped back from the camera. I had my business card visible. And I'm thinking to myself, any other city, any other state, any other time, any other police officer, I could have been dead right now.
Yeah.
And I know we live in a very challenging time in this country, but I'm sharing that with people because it just blew me away, and I never thought anything like that would ever happen to me, but it did. So I just want to share that, and get some comments or no comments at all. It happened to me, and I'm blown away by it.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I'm sorry you went through that. I mean, I've done door knocking before, and I've been met with some challenges myself. Obviously race aside, because I'm the complete opposite, right? Where I've had people, yell at me and say, you knocked on my door too hard and this and that, and just got up in my face and and just say, no, I'm not opening the door for you. And I'm like, well, I'm just trying to, like, I'm your neighbor. Like, I live in the neighborhood. I'm your neighbor. Right. So, I do caution anybody who is door knocking to be cautious. If you feel that, and obviously from Joe, from the story you're telling me, like, there was no warning, there was no indication that this guy was, gonna do this and call the cops and wait right there. Like, who says that? Like, if you think somebody's trying to break in your house, why would you tell the person to wait right there?
Yeah.
Or that they would, if they're trying to do something dishonest.
Right. Why would he even indicate that he's not home? I mean,
yeah,
which is really, it's just a bizarre situation. It blows my mind. And the fact that I had spoken to several other women in the neighborhood, and lady in her yard, and several young ladies unlocked their doors and greeted me, and it didn't make any sense to me why this person felt so threatened.
Yeah, I mean, I had that too. I was an REO agent once upon a time in Illinois, and I was just trying to get some information on this foreclosure that we were going to list, and it was just like this little cul-de-sac, and I was like, hey man, can I talk to you for a minute? He's like, no, stay right there. And I'm like, I mean, don't get it was night, I'm a big dude, I'm 6'2", and over 200 pounds, and he's like, no, stay right there, and I'm like, what, dude? I mean, no harm. Like, I just want to ask you a question. Well, you can ask me a question from there. We're good, like 10 feet apart. I'm like, I really don't want to shout at you, but okay, whatever makes you feel comfortable, man. And so I mean, I never, like, I have never been brought up to see people's skin tone and look at that as anything different than me. Then we're all the same. So I don't get how people do. but obviously people have fears beyond that, you know. The stories that I have, you know, I don't think it's because of my skin tone. Maybe it's because, you know, I shave my head and they think I'm a skinhead. At that time, I didn't shave my head because I had more hair to care about. But you know, so I mean, it obviously could have been skin tone. It could have been just because you're a male. It could have been just because you're knocking on somebody's door, you know. And there's always going to be that bias and prejudice. I just, you know, again, to everybody on this call, please, 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 you know, be careful. If you're going to be door knocking, that's all well and fine and good. But understand people are going to greet you not in a friendly manner. They got these Ring doorbells, and you know, I've had this where people are like, you know, no soliciting, and you know, leave me alone. I'm like, hey, I'm just one of your neighbors. I printed up like what's sold in the past month and this and that and the other thing, and you know, I just want to give it to you. That's all.
Mhm.
You know, I had one guy call me up and say, oh, you left your note on my door. Now everyone knows my house is vacant and you're a jerk face. And I'm like, whoa, what is your problem? You know, I just rolled up like a little piece of paper and shoved it in his door. It was just a little 1-page summary of what's active, what's sold, what's pending in the past month. That's it. You know,
Joe, what was the outcome of it? What did the police say, and why did he
Well,
call the police?
well, interestingly enough, you know, I do a lot of volunteering in my neighborhood. I volunteer at our local hospital, and I also volunteer. I'm on the Lone Tree. It's in Lone Tree, Colorado. I'm on the Lone Tree Police Advisory Committee. I've been serving on it since October 2020, shortly after George Floyd's murder. I so I got the police report. The police chief. We met Thursday a week ago. We meet once a month, and the police chief was kind of blown away that the fact that 3 police officers showed up. He was like, "Gosh, you know," he was like mystified as to why they needed 3 police officers, and also why the person even called the police. The outcome, there was really no outcome. You know, when the police officers showed up, I told them that I was a volunteer on the Lone Tree Police Advisory Committee, and that may have diffused the situation. Uh, you know, I feel I'm very fortunate to, you know, to not to have been handcuffed, not to have been thrown to the ground, harassed, you know, any more than I was.
absolutely. What were you going to say, Brenda? Were you going to say something?
I was just saying, gotcha. I was just saying, I know for me, I live in the predominantly, white community, and I probably wouldn't go door knocking just because I'm a lady and I'm African American, but I do look a little, of another race, but I don't think I'll ever do it. I probably would just do like postcards to introduce myself, who I am in the neighborhood or whatever, before I would do door knocking, but I don't think I'll ever do door knocking.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, I won't be doing it again. You know, the demographics of Lone Tree is like 70, almost 80% white, 11% Asian, and like 4.3% Black. So, you know, there's not very many Black folks living in this neighborhood, and it's a pretty affluent neighborhood. I mean, it's like the model city, and you know, it's just I'm kind of speechless, to be honest with you. But you know, I'm a big boy and I can take care of myself. It's just the fact that I just don't. It was something that happened that was unexpected, and that I never thought one of my neighbors would do something like that. I just
Yeah.
never thought that. Never dreamed it would ever happen.
Yeah,
It's
especially in your own neighborhood.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I had something similar where, you know, guy stepped up to me like right in my face after I knocked on his door, and then the next day I'm seeing him at the bus stop with his kid, with my kids. I'm like, "Yep, told you I'm your neighbor, a-hole." You know. So I mean, ultimately, there's going to be bad experiences. You know, whatever you do. I've sent out letters People have gotten mad at me about mailing them letters, you know, and they've called me up and be like, don't take me off your mailing list. I don't want you mailing me stuff. And I'm like, okay, you have a great day. Goodbye. You know, so ultimately it doesn't matter whatever you do. So there's somebody that's going to try to tear you down, that's going to try to make you feel less than, because it makes them feel better about themselves. Okay. So the main thing is that you just go on, you ignore them. And, you know, again, if you feel safe to continue that way of door knocking and everything like that, then eventually everyone will get to know you, and you won't be greeted like that. You know, oh, here comes Joe again. He's going to drop off our monthly marketing update, or he's just coming by to say hi. He's such a friendly guy. Like, you know, their perception is fear because they don't know you. Right. But
True.
anyway, I didn't want to make it all about this because obviously, you know, people are here for contract training. So anybody have anything that they want to bring up about contract training? If not, I'll just jump into something. Don't everyone speak at once. I know it takes a minute to unmute. So do 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 do. Okay, moving on. All right, let's talk about the beloved. Talked about a buyer's agreement the other day. Let's go through the exclusive buyer's agreement. How about that? Does anyone use those? Anyone want to use those, but just don't buyer's agreement? Yeah, no. Something else?
Well, would you start, Jeremy, this is Jude, would you start with how that correlates with us being a transaction broker?
Yes, absolutely. Let's pull it up right now. Everyone can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes. And for those of you new on the call, please unmute unless you got a screaming baby in the background or something like that, or a vacuum cleaner running for some odd reason. I don't know why. But so the exclusive buyer agency agreement that you are allowed to use is the exclusive buyer broker agreement transaction broker. Notice it's not the one above that says consent to transition to transactional broker. Okay. Because you're not transitioning to transaction broker, you are a transaction broker. So we're going to use this one down here, EBBA 6TB. TB is in transaction broker. Okay. Alrighty. So buyer name here, right? Pretty easy. Your name, right? Here, HomeSmart, the broker, right? Not to be confused with Freddie, right? You wouldn't put Freddie's name here. See, so it says real estate broker. It's not asking for Freddie's name there. You, right? You. And then broker here. So brokerage is what they mean, office, right? So this could obviously, you know, if somebody puts in Freddie's name there, or my name there, or whatever, it's okay. But, you know, more preferable would be your name there. Okay. Then you do the term, right? On this day, this is the month, goes right here. So you just pick in, you know, shall begin on, let's just say today's date, which that doesn't really autofill that great. Okay, so let's say it's the first day. Look at that. Come on. It won't let me type anything in there. So what I would do then, in this particular case, is I would leave it blank, okay? And then when I go to the e-sign, I would fill it in, okay? Termination, you can do whatever you want, but I would probably put at least 6 months, if not a year, okay? However, the buyer enters into an agreement to acquire a property that is pending on termination date. The agreement will continue in effect until the transaction has closed or otherwise terminated. Okay, does that all make sense to everybody? So basically, if you put down 6 months, and then at the end of 6 months, you get them under contract, right? They're pending, and they're about to close in a month. right? Or it's new construction or something like that. And maybe it's going to close 6 months from now. During that pending time, you're protected under that umbrella. Okay. Type of property, put in as much detail as you can here. Single family home, right? Maybe they want a townhouse, would work as well. Location, I would just make it as broad as possible. Florida, right? You might want to put in the counties. I had somebody that I had under a buyer's agreement, and they ended up buying during the protection period. But I had put down like the counties, and they had bought not in that county, so they were out of it, I guess. They found a loophole, if you will. Price range, just if they're approved for 300,000, I would go like 100,000 on either side. Okay. And then buyer has been pre-qualified, pre-approved by name of the mortgage company, right? Let's say Southern Trust Mortgage. Okay, we got a couple of things in the chat. All right. Okay, what about the solar contracts? Show reflection, okay. All right. Preferred terms and conditions. I guess, you know, maybe put it's a FHA, you know, what type of approval that they have, or, you know, I would ask them some questions here, like, you know, if I don't already know, you know, they prefer 3-bed, 2-bath, home in Claremont, you know, that sort of thing. Broker obligation. This is where it's specific to the transactional broker. Okay. So it said, this is all the things that you're required as a transactional broker to provide. Broker assist. Broker will use broker's professional knowledge and skills. Assist buyer in determining buyer's financial capability and financing options. Discuss property requirements and assist buyer in locating and viewing suitable properties. Right? It's listing all of the things you're required to do as a transactional broker. Jude, does that answer your question? Jude?
Sorry, I thought I had unmuted myself and was talking away.
Like I was having a great conversation.
You agree, don't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. How could I not?
Yeah, I see what we're doing there, and nowhere in the agreement does it say that we represent their interests.
Because you represent the transaction.
Yeah.
Right, as a transaction broker.
Right.
So,
So we're doing this. We're doing this so that they don't go choose another agent to work with.
correct.
Okay.
Right, because you're telling them, hey, I'm going to, you know, give you my professionalism, my knowledge, my skills. Right, I'm going to devote a lot of time to help you acquiring this property. And I only work exclusively with people who work exclusively with me, right? You're not saying I only work with transactions who work exclusively with me, right? At the end of the day, there's still people here, right? But you're not, I mean, the main thing is like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the difference between like a single agent and a transaction broker. It's like two things, okay? Because obviously if there's you still need to disclose material defects and, you know, that sort of thing, right? Anything that comes up with the property, you're just not putting them above anyone else, right? So many people get tripped up in this. It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
So hold on, we got a question in the chat. Hold on 1 second.
Do you know your chat comes up as a gray square on our screens?
Cool. You guys can't see my chat. I love it. Okay. All right. Carolina said that for the broker, you should put, so please get the clarification on that. Okay, cool. All right. So Carolina said that Freddie said that real estate broker right here should be Freddie Rodriguez. Whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Okay. No.
That's confusing to people.
Carolina, stop texting. Stop putting stuff in the chat. Unmute and talk to me like a regular person. Crazy person. All right. I'm going to stop reading the chat now. So if you got something to say, just say it. All right.
Jeremy,
Yes.
okay, he didn't say, he said to write down HomeSmart, not Freddie Rodriguez.
Right. But there's two.
Yeah.
Real estate broker,
Yeah.
office. So you're not putting down Orlando.
Okay, we're not brokers. He is. Okay, so I guess then Freddie Rodriguez HomeSmart.
Okay. I'm just saying, Freddie's never had a problem with me filling this out. And I've
Okay,
always put down Jeremy Porter. Okay.
okay. If he told
If
you
he
that, but he
says-
told me,
If he says anything about it, you say, talk to Jeremy
okay,
and I'll back you up.
all righty,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. All right. All
Hello,
right.
Jeremy. I'm Umberto. I'm brand new to this call. I have a question.
Yeah.
By making the entire state of Florida, the designation in the location area, you negate them from buying anywhere in Florida and cutting you out. What recourse do you have if you find out that they did buy someplace else besides and violated this buyer agreement?
Good question. Good question. Is there any veterans on the call who want to answer that question? What recourse do you have if they go outside of this agreement and buy something without you?
They owe you the commission.
You're entitled to a commission.
Okay,
Yeah,
how are you going to get it?
I don't know, legally. You can
I
have
guess
to
you
sue.
you can make a claim to the DBPR.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
What law are they violating? Are they violating DBPR?
Well,
Are
the
they violating Florida state
contract.
license law?
No, they're not obligated to follow license law.
No, DBPR, right? This is a realtor thing. The thing that protects this agreement is the realtor code of ethics. So if they're just a licensee and they're not a realtor, there's really nowhere to go, right? You could, see, this is what I tell everyone. This is not worth the paper that it's written on. Okay, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, and that's why it's the topic that I was thinking about discussing today, and the topic that we are discussing today, right? Is that this is more like if they squirrel out and go with somebody else or whatever, it's because you haven't done your job of providing them value. They don't feel that your representation is valuable, so they're like, all right, deuces, I'm out. Right? So this agreement, not this agreement, just having a verbal agreement in place with them. Most of the time, what I say to my buyers when I'm working with somebody that I don't really know that well, it's not a friend or family member or somebody in my sphere of influence, I say, look, this is how I provide a living for my family. This is how I put a roof over me and my family's head. This is how I put shoes on my kids' feet, right? If you don't want to work with me, that's cool. Or if you don't want to sign this agreement, that's cool. It just means we can't work together because this is how I provide a living for my family. And some people feel that that's unfair, right? But let me ask you, how hard would you be willing to work for a boss if you didn't know you were going to get paid at the end? If you did your job 100% and you didn't know you were going to get paid, how much time and effort would you put into that job?
If you know you weren't gonna get paid,
If you had no idea if you were going to get paid, even if you did your job 100%.
We wouldn't work too hard, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
am I getting
Yeah, I
that we
wouldn't
have no recourse if they buy someplace else? It's just a loss?
I'm going to say yes, but okay. Because more than if you go the proper route, you report them to the board, right? That's the proper way to do it because this is an ethics violation through the board of realtors, okay? So either Florida Association of Realtors and I've never done it. And I recently, in the past maybe year and a half, had somebody who violated this. I had a written buyer's agreement.
Time
know.
out, time out.
Yep.
Jeremy, this is an agreement with a citizen. It has nothing to do with the NAR because they're not bound to play by the rules or have any ethics. They're a private citizen that is in contract with you on this. So NAR can't hold them responsible for violating any ethics because they're not bound by it. We're the ones that are bound by it. So in this case, NAR can't help us either.
Okay, but you just contradicted yourself. You said we're the ones who are bound by it. Who's we?
But we didn't violate it. The question is, when the other party on this agreement violates it and goes to another agent, what is our recourse?
Does your code
And-
of ethics require to ask if the client is working with another realtor?
You're saying you find that out before you sign this with them.
Before you start working with them, you ask them, are they working with another realtor? The
Okay.
second follow-up question is, do you have a signed buyer's agreement? Because if you do,
So you're saying, okay,
can't work
so
with
what I missed is you would go to the NAR with an ethics violation complaint against the other realtor that they end up working with.
not the NAR, it should be your local board.
Okay, but nonetheless, you go to your local board to make a complaint about the other realtor that they end up working with, not the customer. The customer, the client, you have no recourse with them.
You try to take it to
Jeremy,
but at the end of
Jeremy,
the day, it's an
if I-
agreement between HomeSmart and the buyer,
That's right.
right? And HomeSmart's not gonna take it to small claims court.
No,
Right. But you had brought up the idea of an ethics violation and getting the other realtor involved.
Absolutely.
What
That's the
about-
only recourse that you have. And I know you're sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, what if this person never tells me about it? But at the end of the day, I mean, that's the only recourse that you have because of the code of ethics for realtors, which we all are, because we all have to be part of the board, right? Because of the code of ethics, that's what like governs this and helps you. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to split the commission. You're not going to get 100% of it. You might get 75% of it, right? If you do all the work and somebody else writes up the offer, they'll probably get like 25% and you'll get 75%.
Jeremy.
Yep.
The way I use this agreement is somewhat a little bit different than what everybody's talking about.
Okay.
If I can role play with you, I would say, Jeremy, I really appreciate an opportunity to work with you. I know there's a lot of real estate agents out there. Have you talked to any?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Because you owe it to yourself to interview several agents to figure out who's going to work best for you. If I can ask you, has anyone sat down with you or discussed with you your options as far as representation is concerned?
No.
Don't you think it's important to know that, who the real estate agent that you've chosen to work with, who they represent?
Yeah.
Okay. By law, we enter into a transaction as a transaction agent. What that means is that the agent does not represent you unless you engage the agent to represent you. Do you think it's important that you have representation?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a simple form. I'll send it to you. It'll be completed. You'll e-sign it. You'll send it back to me. And then there are exclusive benefits that you get that you do not have if someone represents only the transaction. And I mean, that's in a nutshell. I mean, I go into it a little bit better than that with an agent. I mean, with a buyer. But I just try to educate the buyers that, look, there's a difference between a transaction agent and an exclusive, agency with you, where I represent your interest above the transaction. And if other agents aren't talking to you about that, what is it? What other things aren't they talking to you about? Because this is pretty important, which you've already agreed to. And I find it to be a pretty effective way to get someone to sign the agreement.
Oh, Mark, that's a great example, and you explained it really clearly to the point where I'm now confused, because I'm understanding that we are only allowed to be transaction brokers, therefore we're not representing anyone. And you're talking about representation here.
A
Absolutely.
transaction agent only represents the transaction, and there are specific, obligations that you have to the transaction. But if you're representing the buyer, then there are additional protections that the buyer is given outside of you being a transaction agent.
Understood. And I also understand
on.
that HomeSmart
Hold on.
doesn't want us to enter into the buyer brokerage agreement where we represent the buyer.
Correct, Mark. You would need to curve your verbiage on this, because we're only allowed to do transactional broker. So, again, what I say, right?
Okay.
I don't talk about, because these are the obligations that or the responsibilities, the representations. You can just curve your verbiage a little bit to say, obviously at the end of the day, yeah, we're representing the transaction. It doesn't matter if you get them to sign an exclusive buyer's agency agreement. It just protects your interest. It doesn't protect theirs, because
Okay,
at the end
I'm
of the day,
sorry.
we're still.
Okay.
No,
Strike-
you're okay.
Yeah,
This is
strike that then.
good. This is
Yeah.
good, because I want this clarified, right? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I came from Illinois, where you were a single agent and you had to disclose agency regardless. And you needed them to sign. Like, imagine meeting some stranger at a property, be like, I need you to sign this. Or I need you to sign, or I'm going to give you a notice of no agency saying I don't represent you, because by law, this is what I'm required to do. And you're shoving papers in their face, and they're like, I don't like this. Bro, I just met you. Like, come on, calm down. So yeah, these are the obligations, right? We're still giving them representation, right? Use buyers, right? Use of buyers' professional knowledge and skills. You're helping the buyer by representing them. So Mark, what you could say is, hey, you could get stuck with a transactional broker who this is their first transaction. The average agent does 4 transactions per year. And I do X amount, right? I do 20. Do you want to go with 4 transaction a year person, or first transaction, or 20? Who do you think has more knowledge and skill? Right? Or do you want to be treated like a number? Right? There's teams out there that, the team lead or the buyer's team lead will get you signed up, and you'll never talk to that person again.
I find it very hard to be a transaction broker coming from full support, full brokerage, full representation in another state.
And that's Rita?
Yeah, it's Rita. You end up, I feel like I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing because I'm a transaction broker and not full representation. That makes me a little nervous.
Okay. So what do you feel that you're doing that you're not? And please don't misunderstand. Like yesterday, I said, I want to ruin all of my buyers, all of my clients, my buyers and sellers, right? In general, for any other realtor. I want to do more for them than anyone ever would. Okay? Because use of buyers' professional knowledge and skills, right? That's a pretty broad term.
Well, it is. And
right?
It is. So I just do everything like I've always done it. And I just don't want it to be twisted into, well, you did this, so you're responsible for that type thing. You went to the inspection. You should have known this. You did this. You should have known that. You know what I mean? So I do all
Rita, I came from Illinois again, where when I became a dual agent, okay, which was technically allowed, I guess, right? Where you're single agent normally, and then you have to get consent for dual agency.
Right.
Okay. Wisconsin wasn't so uptight, right? There wasn't so many rules about Wisconsin, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, They called it something else, but it was basically dual agency, right? And dual agency here is just called transactional broker. The main thing I had a problem with anytime I got into to dual agency or transactional broker, right? Whatever you want to call it, is that, you know, my opinion, right?
Right.
And they're like, well, what would you do? And again, I don't think I've been on many transactions where I'm actually representing the buyer and the seller, right? I'm in communication with the buyer and the seller, right? So the main thing with dual agency, at least in Illinois, was your opinion kind of went away. So you could say, these are the options that you have. You can counter, you can accept, or you can reject their offer. You know, some things that have happened in the past that have worked for other people are they would do this and they would do that and they would do this, right? So you can still use all of those examples, right? And you can still even say, hey, this is my recommendation for you, right? But I think it's like the absolute confidentiality, which is not part of transactional broker,
Right.
right? And there's one other thing. There's like 9 things for single agent. We'll pull up in a minute, and then there's 7 things for the transactional broker. You know what I think on the let me go back and pull up the other one. Okay, sorry, blank form. Oops. Okay, so I'm purposely going to use the wrong one. I don't want you guys to get it twisted. You're not supposed to use this one, but I believe it has both types of representation in it. Like it says, hey, this is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to transition to this. Broker obligation, hold on, was it exclusive buyer agency agreement? Broker obligation, determining financial capabilities and financial options. You know, there's still a lot of representation you're giving them. Again, I wouldn't get so caught up on this. It's when you're saying, when you're putting your client ahead of the transaction, which at the end of the day, we shouldn't be getting emotional about this, right? We're the unemotional piece. That's what our main value is.
Right.
Okay. For instance, I had a broker in Illinois who tried to sell her own house, right? Experienced real estate broker. She tried to sell her own house for like 6 months. And one of the top agents in the company said, hey, turn it over to me. I'm not going to charge you anything, but I'll help you get it sold. And she's like, why do you think you can do it and I can't? And he said, because you're too close. This is your home. You've lived here for, 15 years. It's emotional to you. It's not emotional to me. I don't care. I care about you, but I don't care about your house. Right? Okay, here we go. Single agent notice. Single agent notice. Okay. So now this is not to be confused. We're not single agents, we're transactional brokers. So we're discussing the difference between the two, right? Dealing honestly and fairly, loyalty, okay, confidentiality. I think those are the two that are different, but obedience, full disclosure, accounting of all funds, skill, care, and diligence in the transaction, presenting all offers and counter offers in a timely manner, unless disclosure all known facts and material effects that affect the value of the residential real estate and not readily observable. Okay. No. Okay. Dealing honestly and fairly, accounting for all funds, using skill, care, and diligence in the transaction, disclosing all known facts, presenting all offers, limited confidentiality, right? On the other one, you have full confidentiality, okay? Unless waived in writing, This is timely confidentiality, which prevents disclosure that the seller will accept a price less than the buyer will accept a price. Okay. Any duties that are entered into by this agreement in separate agreement. Okay. So really the two is what, confidentiality and loyalty, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so those are the two. We're getting tripped up about two things, really. Okay, and at the end of the day, when you're going through this, not this, because you're not allowed to use this one, right? But when you're going through the exclusive buyer agency representation for transactional broker, you can say, look, this is all the stuff I'm going to do for you. You don't have to say, oh, by the way, it's not full confidentiality and it's not loyalty. You could just not say those, right? We're salespeople. You sell what's good about it. And by the way, if somebody, obviously you still got limited confidentiality, right? But like, for example, right, dual agency again in Illinois, you couldn't say what you knew about the other party, right? So you couldn't say like stuff like, oh, well, the other person is pregnant. They really need to get into a home. I mean, again, that falls under limited confidentiality, right? You don't want to give anything away. So really, what's the big difference here? When you're representing somebody, how are you going to do it differently because it's not single agent?
I don't know. That's what my problem is. I've always done it the same, regardless. So,
I think
You ever
it's-
been sued?
no,
I
You
think it's-
ever had a client unhappy with your representation?
no.
Okay. I think keep doing what you're doing.
Mhm. I
Right?
think, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. So the reason why we have transaction broker, and like you were saying, I always revert back to Illinois because you do deal with dual agency. You can represent the buyer and the seller, but you cannot, like you said, there is limited confidentiality and loyalty to that person. So the reason why we have transaction broker, correct me if I'm wrong, is it because this opens up for you to also you can work with the seller. Say, for example, I'm a transaction broker with a buyer, and I had a seller, ask me if I could list their home. That was very much something that my buyer could buy. I could represent both. Is that right? And that's why you would do transaction broker as opposed to exclusive, because you may have a property come on the market during your time with a buyer that fits that person. And so that opens it up. Is that correct or no?
Yes, it absolutely opens it up, especially like with open houses, right? Somebody just comes to walk in your open house, you're representing the seller, the buyer loves it, wants to write an offer. Obviously, that's maybe 1 out of 100 times that's going to happen, right? But it still could happen, right? It could happen, the first 10 times you do an open house, right? Excuse me. And the fact is that the single agency is more liability for the brokerage. And therefore, insurance doesn't cover it. So therefore, you're not allowed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great.
So Jeremy, it's Mark again. Hey,
Yep.
Thank you for all that. I'll just revise my script a little bit and that'll be great with that. So, but just to make sure I think I understand this, the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement has nothing to do with the representation in terms of whether you're a transaction agent or an exclusive agent, correct? Or,
Well,
if you're a single party or if you're a transaction agent.
Again, I want you to make sure you use the right one. Okay. The one I have in front of the screen right now is not the correct one to use.
Right.
Okay. Because this is consent to transition to transaction broker. It's 6TN. Okay. Still exclusive buyer agency agreement. In the beginning, right, I didn't understand the difference. I always use this one because I'm like, okay, I'll start off as their single agent if transactional broker relationship comes up, I can consent to transaction. So this got me covered either way,
Right.
right? And then Freddie's like, no, 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 you got it wrong. So yeah, that was my misunderstanding.
Yeah,
Nobody
that's
ever.
that was my misunderstanding too until today. So I'm glad I'm on the call. So
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So yeah, I'll just revise my stuff. But just to, once again,
Mhm.
if you're a transaction agent, and I think that everybody, you know, at least I need to hear this, and I think everybody
Yeah.
else would appreciate it. If you're a transaction agent, you can still have an exclusive brokerage relationship, an exclusive buyer brokerage relationship
Yep.
to protect you. Like you said, if I'm going to do the work, I want to get paid.
Yeah.
And so you can have both, you know, well, you don't need a transaction agent default relationship by law, but you can maintain your transaction agent relationship and still have an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeremy, can you put the other one up just so this one doesn't sink into everybody's head that this is
Okay.
the correct one?
I mean, the main reason I wanted to, like, I mean, these are the two things, right? Don't get it twisted. Confidentiality and loyalty. You still have limited confidentiality, right? So if it's anything that's going to impact their offer negatively, oh man, this seller is so desperate. They keep calling me every day. If you could just bring me an offer, you know, number one, you know, even if you're a transaction broker and you're just the listing agent, you're not supposed to say that, right? That violates limited confidentiality. Okay. And you don't have loyalty to the client because you can represent the other side. Okay. It doesn't mean that you skimp on representation, right? You still give them your all, dealing honestly and fairly, right? Accounting for all funds, obedience, full disclosure, accounting for all funds, skill, care, and diligence in the transaction. All those things you still do. The only two things is loyalty and confidentiality. Okay? Because again, you can represent both sides. So there's no loyalty there if you can represent both sides, right?
So could you bring up the other one so that we can see the limited part? Oh,
Yes,
you are. Okay, thank you.
I'm on it. So notice it's not this exclusive buyer agency listing agreement, obviously, right? That's not the one. Okay. Exclusive buyer broker agreement, consent to transactional broker. Nope, not the TN. It's the 6TB right here. EBBA, exclusive buyer broker agreement, 6TB right here. Okay, we're getting to the end of our time. Buyer's obligation, right? This is what they're obligated to do for you. And I think there's another summary down here. I could be wrong. Yeah, okay. And then it sums it up right here, right? Broker relationship. You can still say, right? You can still point out all the good things. Look, if you sign this agreement, this is what I can do for you. You got to do it anyway, right? If you're representing them, but you could simply say, look, I don't represent people who don't sign this agreement because and that means they're not committed at all. I want somebody who's committed. I want somebody who I'm going to work for. And at the end of the day, if I do my job, I'm going to get paid. Do you think that's unfair, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? No? Okay. And if they do say, yeah, well, yeah, I think that's unfair. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what do you do for a living? Oh, you work at Publix? That's great. You're a manager? Oh, that's fantastic. Now, what if you went to work every day and your boss just decided, you know what? I'm not going to pay you for the past 2 months of work. What would you say? And what if you walked in with that expectation? Say, you know what? We'll give you this management role here at Publix, but you know what? If I really don't like the job, if you do a fantastic job, then I'm really still not sure I'm going to pay you. Would you go to work every day? Would you work your heart out? Probably not. Okay. I just ask for the same luxuries that you have right now, if that's okay.
Hey, Jeremy, it
Yep.
does say at the bottom, that last sentence on the brokerage to the buyer.
Uh-huh.
Go back
Right.
up. Okay, it says, and will have limited confidentiality with buyer unless waived in writing.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So what could be an example of limited confidentiality unless waived by the buyer in writing? What, obviously limited confidentiality could be anything that would negatively,
Affect
No.
negotiation. Right.
that would hurt them in negotiations. Thank you. So what could be something that they put in writing that waives that limited confidentiality that people are doing right now? Love letters, right? Hey, we love your property so much. We're a family of 4, and we've been looking for a home for a while. My wife's pregnant, so we really got to get into something. Oh my gosh, we love your home so much. The floor plan is so amazing. The decorations that you picked out, right? That just blows all the limited confidentiality out of the water, right?
Also a fair housing violation.
Right.
Well, but not for the buyer, not for the buyer's agent.
So you're saying that if I get a letter that had all the stuff that you just said in it, and the buyer asked me to submit it with the contract, I have no legal obligation. I mean, I have no legal option that I can't tell the person by me submitting this information, I'm violating fair housing laws.
Are you violating the fair housing law? Are they picking the offer based on, oh, we have a family of 4, right? Or maybe it's a picture of, or, we came here from India, and they're like, oh, we came here from India. There are fair housing violations all over the place, right?
That's what I'm saying is,
But
are we
the listing
liable?
agent.
Are
No.
we liable in submitting a love letter that we know contains personal information that may violate fair housing laws?
Right, you are not, because they're waiving their limited confidentiality in writing. That's why it's important they
Okay.
write the love letter. You don't write it.
Okay, very good. Okay,
Number
that's
one.
fine.
Number 2, as a listing agent, I absolutely do not send over love letters because it violates fair housing, and it gets your client to violate fair housing.
Okay, so you
So-
have a buyer's agent that sends you an offer. You're the listing agent. It's got a love letter. It says, we're a family of 4. We're going to soon be a family of 5. We love your house. We'd love to live there. You, as the listing agent, would you submit that letter to your buyer? I mean, to your
Nope.
seller?
Nope.
So then why have it written?
That choice.
As a buyer, I want to do everything to help my buyer. As a buyer's agent, I want to do everything to help my buyer, right? So I'm absolutely telling them to write that out. If they're comfortable doing it, if they're okay waiving limited confidentiality, right? If that
But
listing
most of
agent
the time
submits
with a good listing agent, that letter's never going to find its way to the seller, correct?
right, it should never see the light
Okay.
of day.
All righty. That's all I need to know.
But I've had people that specifically told me your letter put it over the top, and they selected it because of the love letter.
Well, I've had that happen too. And then after I started thinking about it, I'm wondering if that was the right legal thing to do. But if you're saying that by them writing the letter, they're waiving their confidentiality and their rights under the fair housing law, then it's up to the listing agent to decide what to do with that information, and it's on them.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
I
And
have a
just a
question.
little
Do-
interjection here, man, that I can tell you from like multiple offers is something that we really focus on as part of our program is winning in multiple offers. And I can tell you that the letters that they send in, they're out of your hands once it goes, but a lot of times it really makes a difference that, because a lot of people don't want to sell to these big institutional buyers that are out there right now. And when they see that come across, they see that they're not going to an institutional buyer. And I don't know, and Jeremy, you'll have to answer whether an institutional buyer qualifies under fair housing, because I don't know. I'm not legal on that. I can tell you the other thing that really helps is, you're talking about keeping this loyalty. I was trying to get in a little bit earlier, but I missed keeping this loyalty with your clients as far as the buyer's agent agreement. I can tell you the more service and more value you add to each client, the more that they want to come back to you. I don't know. I know everybody's working with somebody different on different things that they can do, but if we have a mortgage guy in here or a insurance guy in here that's a smart affiliate. Let them know that you're going to help, you're going to help put together somebody that's going to shop to make sure that they get the best insurance deal. We have, different people all around. On our side, what we do is we actually call the listing agent for each offer submission if you have a client with us, because we know that most properties out there right now that are in the market that most of us are dealing with are 25 offers before they close it out and decide on one. Just like you're sending that letter across, what we do is we call up and we say, hey, I just want to let you know, it doesn't matter which one of your clients it is, because we go through and make sure that they're all, we go through and fully approve them before we send them out shopping if we can. And we go in and let you know, I just want to let you know, this is one of my best clients. They're already fully approved for this loan. All as we need is the appraisal plus 6 days to close. I've already got them approved. Their assets have already been verified. Their income has already been verified. And what we found is just like those letters, that call from the lender to the listing agent is another key piece that gets that moving over the hill to get the transaction done. On your buyer's side and keeping your buyers loyal, you let them know that, hey, I just want to let you know I had our smart affiliate lender go through and call the listing agent as well. So you've called the listing agent, the buyer submitted whatever they want to submit, however they want to submit it, and we've called the listing agent. So even though you're not adding money to the transaction, what you're doing is you're pulling that transaction, that file up in the listing agent's file, so that that's going to get reviewed once, twice, 3 times, because they keep hearing from somebody on that. And the more we can do to get these files reviewed, the faster you're going to get the client under contract, and the faster you can move on to getting them closed so you can get to the next client and increase your business over the year. I know this is my first meeting, just kind of was looking at where you were going with that, and the value add to the client, I think, is one of the key items in order to keep those clients in on those transaction agreements so that they stay on board with you. It's the value that you add.
Thank you, Shane, or Sean. I was looking at Shane's name. That's why. So Shane is staying nearby for a question. Anyway, Sean, thank you very much. Those of you who don't know, this is Sean with Southern Trust Mortgage. It's our new smart affiliate. Him and his brother from another mother, Shane, came in, and they're on board. They're helping us out and whatnot. They've helped already one of our agents, Lee Wilson, close 2 or 3 deals now. You're muted. Yeah, I can't hear you.
You're muted.
5.
1 3/4, Shane says.
1 3/4.
We got one coming down the pipe.
All right. And you guys, if you're not using a lender that goes the extra mile like Sean and Shane here do and call the listing agent, anytime I submit offers, I always copy the lender on the offer so that they can know that an offer has been submitted. And in a perfect world, they're going to reach out like Sean and Shane do to the listing agent and, talk your client up and everything like that, and kind of put your name to the top of the stack. So if you're not using somebody like them, I recommend that you reach out and get in touch with them. At least have a conversation with them. It's not a marriage. It's a dance for now. Right? That's it. Okay.
Sean, what are the interest rates now?
The interest rates, depending on. Go ahead, Shane.
I just priced. That's a great question. Question of the day: what are the rates? Okay, guys. Rates right now: 30-year fixed, conventional, 5% down. Right, that's just your standard bread and butter loan in the industry. 5.25% to 5.5%. All of the government loans. I'm just pricing this. Government loans: USDA, FHA, VA. Right now, they're sitting around the high 4s, low 5s. That's today's quick update.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? No. All right. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this segment of the contract training. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for sharing and chiming in. I really appreciate all of you who helped to make this what it is. If everyone just stayed silent and didn't chime in or talk or whatever, this would be kind of boring, just me talking for about an hour. So I really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day, and go sell some houses today, everyone. Come on. What are you waiting for?
Thanks. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone.